Bonjour tout le monde et bienvenue à Cast 54. Je suis Nova et
Hey, Nova, English, please. We're not in Canada anymore.
well, we are in Canada, but still, that's besides the point. You're right. It's English. It's English.
We have the illustrious CCP Pokethulhu with us. Please say hello to listeners.
Hello, everybody, and thanks for having us here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and thank you both for the flexibility in getting this set up with all my travels back and forth around the world. It's been a little complicated, but it's good to be talking to you again here from Iceland.
Yes. Are you going to be like the guy who was, what's his name? The character played by George Clooney in Up in the Air. You're going to be like him soon with that many miles you've been flying?
It's not quite that bad, but you are starting to see a path where that can happen. I am logging a lot more time in Reykjavik these days. Of course, it's been a big week here with the Retribution launch and a handful of other things going on. And as we lean into 2013 and the second decade of Eve coming and the Dust launch coming, I'll be in Reykjavik quite a bit.
Sounds awesome. I noticed you went in the dev fleet, though, that we went and shot up. Are you going to be in the next one?
I will try. I mean, it's the kind of thing where I just frankly had a lot going on. I was sitting next to some people who were in it, was able to vicariously live through their exploits and such. It was funny, a guy sitting across from me here in the office literally was like, I just got attacked by a mining frigate. Is this guy for real? And again, it's just that kind of madness that's fun. But yeah, I will mount up and be part of these. Don't you worry. It's just a matter of priorities and time right now. Yes. It's not a lack of interest.
Yeah. Anyway, let's get the dust. Enough of this Eve nonsense. So, now, the first question we've got for you today is basically about the NDA. Now, this has been in place for a long time because this is a closed beta. And the thing is, though, it's stifling. There's a lot of players who've got all this wonderful content they want to spread with the world. But, of course, because it's this NDA, they can't really do anything. Now, lots of people complain about all the things, but can you explain to us a little bit why you've got this NDA and possibly, if there's a potential for it, how somebody might get CCP's blessing to say something or to show the world something amazing?
Sure. So it's a very fair question. The whole reason behind doing the NDA and the different levels of access that people have, right? As a beta tester in the game, you really do have full access to everything, right? It's sort of, in many ways, the beta testers and the community are an extension, if you will, of CCP employees themselves who also are under an NDA with respect to what they can and cannot say about the state of the beta. And the real reason for that is just to make sure that as you go through this process of getting the game exposed to gamers and journalists, that people who are documenting this, who are talking about the game, are aware of what's finished, what's not, what's in progress, and and in the process with journalists, we have a lot of discussions with them when they start talking about, well, here's what we will allow you to cover. And we don't let them talk about everything during closed beta, but we do sort of say, look, we're not going to, we don't censor what they say. We just make sure they say, look, these are the things that are okay, and these are the things that are not okay just yet. Whereas with the beta testers and employees, of course, everybody here is that elite group of people that has full access to everything behind the curtain, good, bad, and sometimes ugly. And as part of the closed beta, this is where we are sanding down some of the hard edges and just making sure we get everything in the right place. Now, the way at some level now, right? The first thing I'd say about for players who are interested in getting the word out more, I understand the frustration and I understand the excitement about wanting to get the word out there. And maybe the best way to think about it right now is simply to be able, there's nothing preventing somebody from saying, I'm in the beta, I'm having fun, I'm seeing exciting things coming, that sort of stuff at a very high level, and I can't wait to be able to tell you more. But it is going to be just a bit longer before we can have people posting big videos and screenshots and going into details, and we have a lot of programs in mind about how to galvanize that effort for people who are making those assets and who are ready to do something exciting with them. There will be a lot of opportunities to do that. And we had not intended, of course, I think, as part of some of the other things we're likely to discuss here, we had not intended that the closed beta would run quite this long. And, it's just one of these things where what we are doing is, of course, no one's really done this before. And we had a plan, we had a schedule, and it just turned out to be a little more challenging to actually get everything working at the level we wanted it to before we took the closed beta tag off and went right into open beta. So this is where we made a decision here about, look, while we would like to be in open beta now, and I know our players would like to be, it's just important enough to get it right that we figured, all right, we're going to put a couple more months in this. We're going to stabilize, we're going to harden, we're going to polish, and we're going to go into open beta in a better place for doing so. But the flip side of that is that our players and journalists and our employees are living with closed beta just a little longer, but it won't be much longer now.
Which actually touches on the next point we're going to go into, which is the shifting of the schedule into 2013 open beta.
Indeed. Yeah, and I think we can say with confidence it's not it will be an early 2013 open beta. It is, it was really just an issue of, I think, again, just in full candor, right? The players who took part in Precursor saw, a build that we were having some stability issues with, and it was something that we were not happy with, and as a result, we went ahead and made a decision at that time that we were going to hold closed beta a little longer until we got the stability issues running. Codex is a big step up from that, and we're seeing, just session length, we're seeing logging success, things getting to the level that they ought to be for a commercially viable product, as opposed to a bit of what you saw in Precursor. Still had a bit of that, wow, we really are connecting a PC MMO with hundreds of thousands of players in it to a PlayStation 3 game, and it didn't work at quite the level of fidelity we needed it to. So that's really it. And yes, the decision to move into early 2013 for open beta is official. It is real, but it is not much longer from now. I mean, hey, we're right around the corner from Christmas at this point. Early 2013 is coming up fast.
So you reckon January, maybe February?
Haha, I could not possibly comment on any specifics beyond that, but that's not crazy to think about.
Fair enough.
So our next topic that we wanted to touch on was like a general roadmap of stuff in the beta. A lot of players have been kind of wondering that with the schedule changes, they want to know kind of what you guys want to have on the table, like when we hit open beta, before that, maybe a little bit after that. And we were wondering what you could tell us about that.
Sure. Well, think about it this way, right? The primary things that we need to make sure of, right, are, number one is just a solid first-person shooter experience, right? If you ignore the fact that, which is hard to ignore, right? If you ignore the fact that Eve and Dust are literally being connected on Tranquility through this, the main thing we need to make sure is that when a shooter player who's familiar with games like Call of Duty or Battlefield picks up that dual shock or move or what have you and jumps into the game, they are experiencing something familiar and fun. And we're getting really solid on that front and feeling good about it, and we're going to keep pushing that forward. Once you get past that, right, one of the things that we need to just absolutely make sure of is that when you are talking about the actual interaction between Eve and Dust on Tranquility, the first feature that really ought to spring to mind for people is the orbital bombardment we were able to demo at Fanfest, and we've been putting into CC, and we've been getting this thing working. Well, migrating that to Tranquility is maybe the signature feature of what we believe constitutes going into open beta, right? And so this is, again, one of those things where as we keep doing our testing and our balancing and things, we're seeing that come together. We're feeling good about the stability of it and the reliability of it. This is the big deal, right? It's every Eve player is talking about having the ability to drop payloads from space on console players, and it's an exciting prospect for the console guys to turn the cannons back and fire at the spaceships. This is a key feature for us, and so as we think about open beta, that is something we've really got our sights on, is exactly how Eve and Dust players will collaborate and compete with each other in battles. Now, another thing that I would say as we think about moving into open beta and ultimately into launch, we are talking a lot about what I'll call UI, user interface, user experience, things like that. Once again, right, I think you find, and I think a lot of the Dust players who are maybe not familiar with Eve, but are now getting deep into the beta, are finding something very rewarding there, the very core engine of persistence and progressing their characters, things around skill points and by virtue of that leveling up and progressing their character, buying items in the marketplace, tweaking the perfect fitting as you go into a particular kind of battle. This is a very deep experience, and it's a bit complicated for those who have never done it before. And so people who've had a lot of time in the beta to figure it out, or people who come with a fair amount of EVE experience, they're progressing well and they're enjoying it. But once again, if you put yourself in the shoes of those brand new people to the universe who are coming here from Call of Duty and who haven't been in the beta or something like that, this is an experience we want to make. We don't want to just throw people into the deep end and hope they figure it out with a bunch of sharp objects, right? We want to give them something from a user experience perspective that brings them into that process step by step. There is a very deep thing here, and we're really proud of it, but we don't need to overwhelm you as a gamer with it all in the first 10 minutes. And you can see a progression of how this has moved from Precursor to Codex and just things like the video tutorials that we've been able to get in and that sort of stuff, right? So, think about this as a glimpse into the kinds of things that we continue to work on as we move from closed beta to open beta to an ultimate launch in a big way is that side of things as well.
So when you say that the open beta will be sort of trademarked by when orbital strikes become commonplace, would that mean there might be some sort of chance for an event where just planet gets completely obliterated by some sort of strike that happens, like mass event kind of thing?
That's an exciting idea. I mean, I think I can tell you for sure one of the things that we are working very seriously on here is, if you step back for a minute and think about, the moment this is for CCP, right? We're not just launching Dust as our second product ever, right? It's our first console product, and that tends to be a pretty momentous experience for a lot of big developers, right? I mean, I think about things like Bethesda getting Morrowind on the original Xbox when I was there, and how that progressed to Oblivion to Skyrim. I mean, holy cow, this is how things get big. And so for us, that's very important. But it's also, we're entering 2013, which will be EVE's 10th birthday, right? We are entering our second decade of growth and prosperity in EVE Online, and that is not something a lot of MMOs have had the luxury of doing, right? It's something where EVE does keep growing every year, and so when we think about what are the things to do to make this big, it's not just me and a marketing team thinking about how to put the right brand on that and the right programs and the right amplification.
What the Jesus feature is.
Yeah, it's also very deep in what you're saying here, right? It is the lore that ties these things together, right? We have a very deep history in EVE, right? That we have not just the things that we as a developer have done, but things that the players have done. And bringing all of that into canon and then leading it into the next series of events of how these mercenaries actually enter the universe and making sure this is in sync with all the lore we've written in Templar 1 and in Chronicles and things like that this stuff all comes together in a way that the hardcore EVE fan recognizes and that the Dust fan is going to appreciate. It's not just we flipped a switch and there's a new feature. No, we are bringing you along a journey that is how we saw, again, this idea of in this, this real universe 20,000 years in the future, this is how clones start making their mark in the infantry combat on planets in this universe. And you are going to be part, as a player, of unlocking those things. And so coming back to your specific idea there of a planet blowing up, right? I'm not going to be able to tell you what exactly is in that storyline, but believe me, people who are familiar with the history of EVE, not just from what the players have done, but from the lore of the empires and how, the idea of Mordu's private trials leads to uprising. We are baking that very firmly into how we're rolling this out. And people are going to be really excited about how that comes together, not just from being able to look in the rearview mirror and say, yes, this is consistent with that which has come before, but for the big things that are coming next. And again, is a planet going to blow up? I couldn't confirm or deny that for you now, but it will be that sort of stuff that players will be able to be part of and really leave an imprint on the ongoing lore and memorialization of that between EVE and Dust in the EVE universe.
Can you make any comment on the recent mysterious armored figure that shot Tybus Heth, the executor of the Kellar estate? So, for those who don't know, in Eve, recently Tybus Heth, who's the executor of the Kellar estate, he's basically in charge. He got shot while he was doing a speech on New Caledonia, and there was this mysterious robed armored figure that was crash tackled by a whole heap of his guards after killing about 12 of them in armed and unarmed combat. Can you make any comments on this?
Not really. It just might be part of what we're talking about here.
It just might be. Internal affairs would have sniper rifles trained on you if you
I can already feel the lasers pointing at me from distant rooms. I'd better stop on this one now.
Okay. We better keep you alive.
Yeah.
Now, another thing we've been getting lots of requests from and lots of discussion about is Dust merchandise. Now, the Eve store where you've been able to get some things such as the incredibly beautiful Megathron model that sits above my desk, and awesome. As well as posters, and there was an Eve again. There's all sorts of wonderful things. Now, is Dust going to be seeing any of the similar things? Like, I have this Dust t-shirt I managed to snag from Fanfest, and it's great, but nobody else is able to get one at the moment.
Yeah, this is something that, again, as we, CCP did run its own store for a period of time. In the end of looking at things last year, there was a realization that, this is not necessarily something that we will ever be the best in the world at. We're very proud of our ability to create unique virtual worlds and single shard sandboxes on the computer and on the console. But running a store is something that we are working with partners to start doing. And so we do have plans to be unveiling a new store for Eve and Dust very soon, and that the merchandise that is available through this partnership and in getting that thing up and running will be, again, as you say, like at the very basic level, of course. The idea that T-shirts and such, are available is something that will happen very soon. But hey, we've got some pretty, this is a pretty big deal. We've got some pretty exciting ideas about what might come next and the kinds of merchandise that you see with Eve, with ship models and such. There's no reason why we shouldn't be able to mirror those ideas with Dust. It's just simply doing those things on a different level with a different twist, right? So this is very much in the plan. Don't have a date for you right now, but I don't think people will have to wait terribly long in terms of being able to actually start seeing this stuff, start making purchases, and start imagining the kinds of things that we'll have ready for you when we get to FanFest.
So I'm going to be able to order a replica assault rifle, maybe not full size, but a replica one soon.
Those are the kinds of things we think about. And the kink on that, of course, is that if we were able to sell those kinds of things at FanFest, they are notoriously difficult to get through customs. So it is the sort of thing that we are thinking more about logistics as well, of not just the manufacturing of these things, but the delivery of them as well.
Well, I guess some of the good things about making some particularly exotic-looking weapons, which there are some of in Dust, is that it's not going to look like a weapon, so you shouldn't have those problems with customs, hopefully.
It's plasma cannon is a walking stick.
Yeah, plasma cannon is a walking stick.
It's they don't tend to have very big senses of humor when you're passing through there. So we're going to play it safe on this one and make sure people's hard-earned cash doesn't turn into something that gets stuck in a locker room in a customs port somewhere.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah. I'm definitely one of those people who's just absolutely waiting for the chance to be able to throw money at CCP to get some awesome Dust swag.
Well, and again, I think a lot of committed gamers are, right? I mean, I think whether you are committed to CCP and the Eve universe and Dust, or if it's, whatever thing you have, I mean, we look around the industry and there's some really interesting businesses out there, right? I worked at Microsoft for several years, and one of the guys that I worked with there, Ed Fries, opened this business called Figureprints, right? Where you can take your World of Warcraft avatar and make a figure out of it, and those were not cheap items, and it's just consistently, if you want to make an order, there are months of backlog in getting these things manufactured, and that's just a testament to the fact that for a lot of us, games aren't a diversion, right? This is important stuff we do, and it gives us real meaning in our lives. And so that is an easier thing to express in the notion of what are the physical things that you're able to, like you say, have ships hanging above your desk or the T-shirt that you wear. It's incumbent on us as a developer and a publisher of our products to just make sure that we allow gamers to do that. It's not about wow, this is a way for us to make a bunch of money, but it is about, reciprocating that passion with the community and letting them be the biggest advocates of things as well. It's something that we're, not as far along on as we plan to be. And we have, again, going into this second decade of the EVE universe, you're going to see us do a lot more exciting stuff here.
Just touching on, it's close to it, not quite the same, but I know back in the early days, at least, we were talking about the idea of a Dust 514 themed PS3 console. Was there ever any movement, or is there any possibility of that ever happening?
There has been some movement, and there is some possibilities. We, and I think Sony's been a terrific partner. We were really pleased with getting the Dust 514 pack there in their console bundle for the holiday. This was a big deal, right? This is what, this is high profile exposure for the product and getting people out there. And again, that very mechanic right there is one of the ways that the Call of Duty guy is going to find himself playing Dust. And whoa, what happens from there? The next thing is he's chatting with people on the PC and EVE, and then, as we like to say, these stories always end with meeting in real life, going to Fanfest in Reykjavik, and getting a clan or a corporation logo tattoo after a pub crawl. And that's really how we think some of that larger audience gets into the game. And so when we think about branded consoles and accessories, right, we've got a number of accessories running in terms of packaging and offers running in Europe in parallel with what the console bundle is in North America. Beyond that, you start thinking about, what would a Dust branded console look like? And it is the kind of thing that, there's ways to make that happen, and we are having those discussions internally and with Sony. And I think, when it comes time for commercial launch, there just might be something there. How big of a thing it is, it really will depend on how things go into beta and such like that. But this is absolutely something we're excited about doing, and there's a number of ways to make it happen.
I know one thing that Nova would be incredibly excited about is a sharpshooter that looks like a weapon from the game. He would really love that.
I've actually been having a lot of fun with the Move in the current beta. So like some sort of themed Dust 514 peripheral for the Move would actually be quite nice.
That is a neat idea. And it's been fun to see, right? I mean, I have not been a Move player, but when I was at E3 watching people, right, I think for a lot of people, using the sharpshooter was, at first they were kind of like, okay, let me try this. And like you say, right, once they started getting it, they're like, whoa, I like this, right? And we are finding that there are some players who just absolutely love using the sharpshooter. And, on the converse, there's plenty of people who are perfectly happy using a DualShock and such. And so, I think, let me think about that. That's not an easy one to get done, but that is a very intriguing idea there that also appeals to me just as a gamer. I'm going to think about that a bit. I don't know how exactly we can get that done. That's not the easiest one you've asked for.
I'm hoping for my sake, because I'm actually one of the guys that, I don't know, shock or art, that uses the mouse and keyboard to play Dust 514. So I'm hoping that you come through, because I know there was many things and stuff and whispers, and from players at least, about the possibility of Razor gear that's the EVE themed. So I'm going to have to hope for that to come through for me at least.
Well, there is a good dialogue going on with a number of those partners, right? And again, as we think about second decade coming up here, this is, I mean, I think of it this way, right? Everything that CCP has done over the past 10 years with EVE, with the community, with a council of stellar management, a single shard sandbox, there's so much exciting stuff that we've been able to do. And second decade for us is going to be an opportunity to bring it all together. And it will be EVE, and it will be Dust. It will be the future. Partners like being part of that sort of stuff, right? When we are going big and we have a big focus and a great story to tell, those are discussions that are underway right now. And it's not just, I mean, hey, there's all kinds of terrific companies in this industry that we have worked with and will continue to work with. A lot of them supported us in a big way at Fanfest last year, and this year's Fanfest is only going to be bigger. So all of those things are very much in the spirit of what's happening here right now as we gear up for those next few months and a big, exciting crescendo at Fanfest.
Speaking of which, is it now? I know I went to Fanfest this year, and the place was more or less packed. Now, FanFest is going to be adding Dust. Hopefully, Dust will be at least an open beta, if not released by the time or maybe not released, but at least an open beta by the time FanFest rolls around. What sort of awesome? Do you have any sorts of awesome plans for it? And will you need to get a second venue?
Haha, it is an interesting question on the second venue, right? I mean, let's talk about that first, because I think we do expect at a high level, right? You know, what we did last year, and this was an interesting sort of way to approach it, because, you know, you'd had, I mean, you need to think about what things were like in late 2011 and early 2012 as we were leaning into FanFest, right? That, you know, the EVE community had been very vocal about their disappointment about certain things that had happened. And one of the things that we wrestled with was how much of FanFest needed to be emphasized on Dust. And would that, you know, for example, send a message to somebody in the EVE community that they didn't want to hear, right? And as it turned out, that was not an issue, but it was something we thought about very carefully, and we wanted to make sure that we did, you know, that we supported both Dust and EVE in the right way that made everybody who came to FanFest feel good about their trip. You know, it's a big trip for a lot of people to come all the way. You yourself, right? You know, I mean, that's not a short flight.
That's like, what was it, 11,500 kilometers or something like that. It was 30 hours, like 2 days more or less each way.
Yeah, and you know, for our employees coming out of Shanghai, it's not that different, right? It's a pretty darn long flight, and you want to make sure that when people are here that you are serving them well and that they are having a good time. And so this gets back to a couple things, right? I think the first thing is we feel pretty good about how things lined up with Thursday being a very heavy Dust day, and Friday being a very heavy EVE day, and Saturday being more of a CCP overall day, if you will. And so I don't think it's going to exactly be like that, but a similar idea there of how to focus these things so that, you know, we make sure people understand what the schedule is well in advance. They know where they want to be when, you know, they can plan for the tracks they want to partake in, and they can plan for, you know, other things they might want to do on the tourism side, or just getting some extra sleep after a couple of big nights, you know, in exchange for that. And so we are honing that schedule now. You know, obviously we've announced that tickets are going to be on sale, and we're starting that process. But there's a lot more to come on what we're announcing in FanFest, and you should, you know, expect that as the new year kicks off, we're going to be making those announcements on a regular basis. We're going to be letting people know, all right, here's the next thing, here's the next thing, here's the next thing, and building it up in such a way that the FanFest becomes a must-attend event, you know, at some level, not just if you're an EVE player or a Dust player, but, you know, if you are a passionate gamer who takes the historical moments of video games seriously, this is one not to miss, right? If you've ever contemplated coming to FanFest, if you've ever thought about playing EVE, playing Dust, and taking part and seeing the spectacle, you know, again, this is the FanFest, right? It's like you say, Dust will be a brand new entry into the universe. EVE will be celebrating its 10th birthday. This is going to be a big one, and we are pulling out all the stops for it.
And it's April 25th to 27th, isn't it?
That's correct. And frankly, part of the idea of moving it out a bit was, you know, it just makes you know, Iceland's a lot nicer in late April than it is in March. Yeah. You know, 1 month makes a big difference. And so, you know, we timed it in such a way that, you know, there is a big tourist season here. We wanted to get ahead of that. You know, we wanted to move it into the better weather as far as we could without getting our fans into a place where they were competing with just the national tourism cycle that goes on here. So we're getting people in here in a time when, you know, it will be better weather, it will be more fun, you know, but you won't be necessarily competing with the hordes of people who do come into Iceland. And, you know, like you say, are we going to need a second venue for FanFest? We are looking at that now. It's entirely possible that there may be some events where we need to take out some more space and things like that. But, you know, we absolutely love the Harpa. And I think those people who came last year just, you know, again, there's a part of me that just deep in my soul, I know that when Harpa was being built, people were thinking this is a place to have an EVE FanFest, and they just made it look the right way, right? Yeah, it has that very, very futuristic feel without being tacky.
If you haven't ever seen Harpa, by the way, I recommend you go Google some images of it, because it is quite just mind-bending. It just looks amazing, especially from the outside and even from the inside. Like if you're standing inside, the windows are all these amazing shapes, just this repeating pattern, and the roof is just mirrors with all these wonderful shapes. It's amazing.
It's just a very inspiring building, right? I mean, it just like, I mean, I expect that as you look out into our future, right, that there's plenty of visions and goals and dreams we all have. And I think as an individual, I look at it and say, maybe commercial space travel isn't something that I'll be able to partake in, but I'm sure my children will. And I look at a building like Harpa as like, I think this is what those airports might look like. I mean, it's just a gorgeous, inspiring building which clearly had a big vision of what the future could look like. And it's just unforgettable.
So let me get this straight. You just revealed that Harper is the true site of the classified cosmonaut program?
I cannot confirm nor deny that.
Yeah, if you Google images of the Harpa, there's parts of it that actually look quite similar to the ROM over in Canada. And speaking of museums, Eve is actually recently being admitted into the Museum of Modern Art in, I think it's New York.
Yeah, that is correct. And yes, again, it's been a little nutty here these past few weeks because we've had the announcement about the MoMA. We've had the Retribution launch. We've got some stuff that will, knock on wood, we should be able to give you guys a big momentum announcement here really soon about how things are going with Retribution and such. And MoMA is, again, one of those things, right? There aren't a lot of games that were picked. And to be alongside, a game like Tetris, to be alongside The Sims, that's a pretty big deal, right? And it is a fun thing to sort of look at and say, Eve just might be something more than another video game. I mean, we absolutely believe that. And we look at the cultural impact it has had on the community and the people who are part of Eve right now. Being part of MoMA is it's an incredible honor, but it's also a really interesting message to people of, hey, maybe, again, it's just one more reason. It's like maybe you should be paying attention to Eve, right? If you're not for some reason. And there's a lot of people who, are paying a lot of attention, but there's a very big audience of gamers and people in the industry who maybe aren't. And so, we are taking everything very seriously here with MoMA. We're holding an event now where, basically we're going to, record and encapsulate a day of history in the Eve universe. And we've invited all the players to be part of that. And that day will be the core of the exhibit that actually gets entered into the Museum of Modern Art, and that millions of people every year will walk by in New York City. And Eve's not something you can show in a panel, in a screenshot, in a trailer. I mean, you can show pieces of it, right? But we've thought very deeply about something bigger. And this, of course, is, Torfi Franz, our creative director, has been the point person here on this and rallying a team of people internally to create something that every Eve player will be just absolutely proud of and will need to be a part of, right? And in fact, that event kicks off very soon here. So, people who are who are listening and are Eve players should make sure they get a login in there so they can leave their footprints in the sandbox for a day that will be immortalized.
Speaking of immortalization and overall fame and stuff, that ties us nice into one of our other topics too, which is esports. And this is something that you guys have said that you've been really looking forward to, and we'd been wondering what kind of stuff and like which kind of groups you've been partnering with. Like, are you guys planning on bringing Dust to MLG, for example?
I remember having an interesting conversation about this with you at Fanfest, actually, David.
Yep, that's right.
The party at the top of the world. We're all just sitting there around a table, I think it was. No, we were sitting on the floor, all with beers in hand.
We were sitting on the floor, that's right.
Beers in hand, there's a bunch of us just all going, with CCP Unifex as well.
Absolutely. Well, look, here's what we can tell you and what we know, right? The Alliance tournament has always been a big part of Eve, and part of having it in the summer this year was giving us an opportunity to really get behind it and promote it more than we had in the past, and felt very good about what we were able to achieve there, both on the CCP side and with the partner we were working with, Own 3D, and that led very nicely to the New Eden Open, which just concluded here. Now, the New Eden Open was an exciting thing because it was our first cash tournament, and having a $10,000 prize there was a lot of fun. But we know we are just getting started here. It's like you say, you look at the impact that esports has had. It's just really fundamentally changed a lot of how gamers engage with each other and with their games, with their developers. We are going to be much more focused on esports as a fundamental part of our business going into 2013. That'll manifest certainly in EVE. We have a lot of plans for it in Dust. There are things in order to do this stuff right, though. I mean, we've had our little tournaments in Dust right now, but what we need to do to really blow this out is certain tools just need to be built into the game. And so, step one, again, coming back to what we were talking about earlier, is just that manic focus we have on making Dust a great first-person shooter experience, on getting the connection with EVE right, and allowing things like orbital bombardment and orbital artillery to manifest in a way that just really resonates with gamers and players of both games. But when you think about some of the things that need to come next, right, that is where we think a lot of the tools that you need to place into a game to facilitate esports and make it easier for example, for people in the community to hold their own little tournaments, and for us to take big tournaments and broadcast them in a big way, as you see right now with Own3D, with Twitch, with partners like that. This is very much the plan. And we did attend the MLG event earlier this year in the U.S. on the East Coast there. But there's a lot of enthusiasm on that front, and we do think that is something we will be continuing the discussion on going forward. But it is something that, frankly, to do it right and not just, cobble it together with paper clips and duct tape, we're going to do the right things in the client, in the development, with the studio, to make this a great experience that really is something we can amplify well. It is a big part of what we think about for 2013.
Sounds good. Good.
Yeah. Well, we do seem to be asking you a lot about stuff with what you're doing with partners, and we do have another one just like that. We wanted to ask you about Merc packs and other PSN deals. Like, for people who aren't aware, the Merc packs are essentially things that give you Orm in-game and then a bunch of other random awesome in-game items that are usually incredibly useful.
Mm-hmm.
And we've recently just had the one Merc pack, and there was a deal where PS Plus members could get it for half price. And we've been wondering if there's going to be any more Merc packs or any other kind of special deals related to Dust on the PSN store.
Oh, absolutely, there will be. I mean, here's what we'd say, right? Number one is that the Merc pack as you have it today is a great sort of entry point into Dust as an experience, right? You're paying for a certain amount of virtual currency, but you're getting an awful lot on top of that. And of course, for people who don't know, right, for those who choose to purchase and use virtual currency in the beta now, it will all be refunded to you, so you'll get to spend it again as we head into open beta with a full, much like any other MMO, we will have a server wipe and things like that. And at that point, all the currency you spent will be refunded to you. So there's no concerns about, oh, I bought that thing and then they changed it and now I feel like I've wasted my money. That will not be a concern. You will get the chance to, spend that Orm again once the balancing and the wipe is done. And so as we think about what goes forward, right, the Merc pack itself is likely to be call it an evergreen product, but we do plan to change it up a bit, right? And so people who are familiar with this one and may have bought one of these, there will be a similar offering at a similar price point, but we'll have different objects in it as we lean more towards open beta and make that part of sort of that opportunity. But we do think it's also something where we want to have some bigger items out there as well, right? As we look at what other games in the space have done, it's about having some kind of an entry level thing, and then having some, maybe a more deluxe offering that gives you an even bigger bang for your buck, a better deal on the currency and better objects in there. So this is the sort of stuff where, again, I don't think we have any big plans to change that within the current year, but I think when you get to open beta in early 2013, you're going to see some new packs, if you will. And then just, part of how you market those, right, is that, yeah, there are times and places for big promotions like that. And so the PS Plus promotion that you cite there, right, we had worked closely with Sony and with their digital team on the PS Plus side and the home team and things like that to just make one big moment there during the closed beta, and they got an exclusive beta event. They got the promotion on 50% off with the Mercenary pack. We put a lot of assets in their hands with the videos and interviews and blog and things like that. That was a really successful promotion for us. Players really responded to it well, as did the new people on the PS Plus side. So yeah, we are absolutely going to be doing more of those things. But it would be a mistake to talk too much about exact prices and dates and things like that right now. It is part of the big plan of really rolling Dust out in a big way.
Alrighty. Now, David, for this next question, I would recommend that you close the blinds and the windows, move away from them, possibly even to the bathroom for this, because those internal affairs snipers might get a bit trigger happy. What can you tell us about the next build that's going to be coming out? Now, I know the name of it starts with CHR, but we know no more than that. Can you tell us the name even?
You know what? I'm going to refrain from that at the moment. I will. Let me put it to you this way, right? These getting a build out onto the PlayStation Network, right, is obviously not something that CCP itself is fully in control of, right? We submit a build, it gets certified, it goes through QA there at Sony, and when all goes well, we're then able to propagate it out to the production servers there and things like that. So we have an idea of when the next build goes. If all goes well, what I can tell you is that let's just say Dust players should look forward to getting a bit of an early Christmas present. We do not think it's much further away, and that we are pretty confident. We like what we're seeing. We submitted a build that we felt really good about. It is not going to be much longer.
Okay. Can you perhaps tell us when the build was submitted?
In the recent past. How's that?
That sounds specific enough to make us happy, but not specific enough to bad things happen.
Yeah, I could almost hear the lasers pointing at me, but I think they backed down a bit.
Okay. No, and of course, as we always ask any CCP person that we run into on the show, can you, and this one will definitely get you killed if you answer it, can you tell us the meaning of 514?
Oh, no, I can't. But I have a pretty good idea of when that will happen. I mean, it is a...
Wait, you mean it's going to be revealed?
I think there is a moment when it will happen. I think there is. Now, to be clear, right, I'm just going to be completely candid with you on this. That is above my pay grade. I do not get to make that decision. I get to, have a discussion with others and with my boss about when we think that moment is, and he will ultimately make that judgment call.
So this comes from the desk of CCP Helmer, CCP Pedersen himself.
Of course it does. And, I mean, again, it's just one of those great... I guess I just put it this way, right? I did not even ask that question until I was an official full-time employee. And when I did, Hilmar and I were having dinner by ourselves at a quiet place here in Reykjavik. And the answer he told me was something that I thought to myself, yeah, we're going to handle this the right way. This isn't just something we're going to blurt out one day. This is a pretty exciting thing for us, and we're going to make a bigger deal out of it. But I will not promise you that it will even happen at open beta or launch. There's a lot of stuff in those little 3 numbers, and it will have its moment, and we will do it well.
All right. Well, perhaps our guest here, for people who are interested in trying to learn the meaning for themselves, could he point them in the right direction, tell them where to go, what to read, what might give them a good head start into figuring it out for themselves, kind of?
The only thing I can tell you is that, we watch, of course, we're CCP. We're very mindful of our community, and we're always in dialogue with them. We're always watching the videos, the blogs, the forum postings that our community has put together. And as we do that, I can tell you that there are some people who are getting pretty darn close, but that's as much as I'm going to tell you. just because this is a big thing, and we're very excited about what we're going to do with it.
For me, I would say at least go read Templar 1. That should definitely be, if you haven't read Templar 1 and you're interested in the meaning of 514, that's probably the best place to at least kickstart you. It's not going to be in there, but it's a good start.
You got to read between the lines, as it were.
I couldn't comment on that.
No, I think it's more or less most of the things we've got for you today, David.
Terrific.
I think there was just one more Nova.
Yeah, there was one more thing. This was kind of a late addition to our topic list that one of the community actually asked me to ask.
Sure.
It's regarding Aurum tokens. There's something that's not very often seen in Eve since Aurum was introduced, and they apparently exist in Dust as well. And it was asked if these could possibly be used as a Dust equivalent for Plex, something that players could buy with real currency and then actually trade the physical item to other players for money in game.
There's a neat idea there. I can tell you that it is the sort of thing that we have been talking about. I mean, there's the notion of what Plex might be, right now, right, for people who aren't Eve players, basically it's you buy it, you buy a Plex from CCP or potentially at some point from a third party that sells them, like our vendors who sell time cards and things like that. And with that Plex, you can either turn it in for 30 days of game time directly, or you can sell it as a game on. You can sell it as a product on the in-game market and be paid for it with ISK, with the in-game currency. This is something that we haven't really done yet in Dust, but we are looking at a number of ways to do it. And one of the things that you think about is, for example, if a Plex is something that is worth 30 days of game time, are there notions of larger or smaller plexes, if you will, that are denominated in different amounts of game time? Now, we don't want the currency exchanges of Plex and Dust and ISK and Eve and things like that to get too complicated too fast. But this is absolutely something we're thinking about. And as we move forward, right, with joining the economies of Eve and Dust and allow ISK and Aurum to potentially flow between the two, we have to look at those things very carefully and make sure we do them correctly. The ultimate usage, the ultimate role for Plex in Dust is something that may look a little different than what it is in Eve, and these kind of ideas are stuff that we look at deeply and take very seriously. I mean, look, we were the first company to hire our own lead economist and brought Dr. Ao out of his role running the economics department at an Icelandic university. These are the sorts of things he is here to help us solve. It's exciting stuff.
I think one of the things with the whole Plex and the Dust equivalent was that, for example, with Plex, you can actually redeem those in-game to get Fanfest tickets, for instance, or other things around. No, I didn't do that for this year, but a number of players use this option. Do you think such an option would be able to exist in Dust as well? Possibly not for this year, but, the next Fanfest, but maybe the Fanfest after.
Yeah, I'm thinking about that. I mean, I guess, well, theoretically, right, as a Dust player, you could create an Eve account and buy a Plex that way and still have it to buy a FanFest ticket if we were to do that again, which I expect is part of the plan, or the live stream and things like that. But you're right. Again, all things get a little trickier when you think about Dust because, you're also talking about currencies moving on the PlayStation platform. And so there's another partner to work with there. And not that they aren't, they're perfectly receptive to these things, but it does take a little more time because, they have a giant virtual currency policy that impacts hundreds of publishers across thousands of games. Whereas, when it's us on the PC, we're able to just do that directly with our community and with our retailers and such. I don't have a good answer for you on the when of that, but it is something that we are thinking about and talking to Sony about as well.
Are we going to be able to do Plex for PS3s?
We might be talking about that kind of stuff,
yeah,
but
No, at FanFest this year, they had the Plex for, what were they? They were NVIDIA graphics cards. I can't remember what model it was, but I think they sold it in like a couple of hours.
Oh, you're wrong. It was within a minute.
Oh, it was a minute. I knew it was very quick, but I didn't really think it was. It sounded a bit ridiculous in my head, but sometimes things are just so true, even though it's completely ridiculous.
Yeah, we blew through. The intention was to sell 100 graphics cards this way, and they sold in something like 65 seconds. And they actually sold so quickly that we accidentally ended up selling more than 100 because we weren't fast enough turning it off. And we didn't want to tell the people who had actually, done the whole transaction, oh, sorry, we couldn't sell them to you. So we actually sold a little over 100 as a result. And look, NVIDIA is another great partner that we work with, and we intend to work with them again this year at FanFest, much like we always do in terms of how to propel the graphics forward in EVE and on the PC for other publishers and developers. I think that we are so excited about how that went that we're starting to look at what are some of the other things that we could do with Plex and allow gamers. Again, it comes back to that notion of, as much as the gaming universe is moving digitally, we all still live in the real world, right? And we all still love having a T-shirt we can wear to the office or to school. We love having a ship model that we can have on our desk, to let our flags fly proudly. Hey, this is important stuff, and there isn't anybody thinking more about what to do with virtual economies and real life goods than CCP. This is something we are thinking about very seriously and going forward with. You'll see more on this soon.
So this is clearly part of CCP's plan to dominate the world.
Well, again, you're getting into things I couldn't possibly really comment on, but we like to think we're not just making video games here. As important as that is, we do think we might be doing something bigger.
No, well, thank you very much for your time, Dave. It's been a pleasure as always.
Absolutely, and again, thanks for allowing the flexibility to make this work. I mean, for those who don't know, the three of us are in some very different time zones right now.
No,
that's okay.
If you see this man at FanFest, you must buy him a beer and ask him about just anything to do with EVE, because he will just talk about things all day and you will just love listening to it.
He's possibly the only person in the world that loves talking about Dust more than myself or Gradaris.
Ooh, we might have to have a contest about this at FanFest when we actually finally meet face to face.
I'm sensing a contest over beers. I mean, look, it's hard not to get excited about what we're doing here, and it's really easy to get fired up about seeing the community's response. I mean, we owe a lot of this to guys like you two, to your listeners, to the players of Dust, the people in the beta, the EVE community. I mean, it's not hard to get fired up about what we're doing here and seeing, and boy, at FanFest, it's just, to see it right there, to have the people with you right there, it's just an unforgettable experience. It's just absolutely one of the highlights of the year, and I am looking forward to this year being even bigger and better. I mean, it will not be something people will forget.
So again, thanks for joining us, and we hope to hear from you again. Maybe we'll have you on after the open beta hits.
Sounds terrific. Thanks for having me, guys.
It's all right.
Yeah, indeed. Thanks for coming.
Now, for the next Cast 510 episode, we're going to try and get some more CCPers on. Hopefully, we'll be able to get some people like maybe CCP Wolfman or CCP Nothing to tell us a bit more nitty-gritty about the game itself. We're also looking to, and I know we said this in a previous episode, maybe we'll actually finally get some of the CEOs for corporations. If you were following Dust News, the CCP themselves have actually been doing some CEO and corporation spotlights, and we're looking to actually finally get some of those people onto the show to talk about what they do and how much ass they're kicking. I think that's about it for the next episode. Nova?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for us as well. Yep. So I guess we'll see you guys on the next episode.
Yeah, we'll see you then. And make sure you keep listening, keep watching out for news, and hopefully we'll all get an early Christmas present.
Yes. We have one other thing. I almost completely forgot. There's a very, very good chance that we will be having a new dev blog out about the general reward system and payout and stuff within the week.
Ooh.
They said that they were aiming to get it out within the week, but that's not set in stone, but we're hoping.
Alrighty, well, hopefully that will happen, because that's yet another present, and that makes everybody happy. So we will see you guys all next time. Keep watching, keep listening. Peace.
Later.